So before I get to the main subject at hand, I want to spend a few moments talking about what that means for us in Canada. And I think the first observation is what's going on is a direct consequence of President Trump's unjustified tariffs against Canada, tariffs that were first levied on Canada and Mexico and then on the world. And those measures are going to hit a lot of people's savings, including their retirement savings. And as much as this is unfortunate, it was not unforeseen. This is what we have been concerned about. And indeed, this is what we've been trying to warn the President of the United States about. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There may be some tough days ahead for Canadians, but I also want to reassure that we are prepared. We foresaw this. And borrowing on my experience helping to guide Canada through the 2008 financial crisis and helping the United Kingdom weather the impacts of Brexit, we have been taking steps and we are continuing to take steps to protect Canadians. What you worry about in these types of situations, if you are charged with overseeing financial markets, are there problems that are being created by the markets themselves, the banks themselves? Are there weaknesses? We do not see that. We have rock solid financial institutions in this country, so they're not making it worse. Okay? So, but what is happening in the markets is they are reacting to what we have warned about, which is that these tariffs are fundamentally damaging to the American economy and by extension to the global economy. So what needs to be done in a situation like this is, yes, there's a lot of technical things and liquidity and lots of work, that needs to be done to make sure the markets function and the markets don't make it worse. I have confidence in the Governor of the Bank of Canada, Minister of Finance, they're on top of it, and also have confidence in Canadian institutions. So Canadians can be reassured on that. But what you need to do in a crisis, and I have long experience in this, is you need to meet it with overwhelming force. You need to meet it with overwhelming force. And the situation at the heart of this is uncertainty about U.S. policy, or to make it worse, is greater certainty that U.S. policy will be self-harming to the American economy and therefore the global economy if the U.S. doesn't walk back from this tariff policy. We can't control the United States. We can't control President Trump's decision. We can speak, and we do, and influence and inform. We can control what we do here in this country, and that's why we're being clear about, and we've been clear from the start in terms of the huge payback if we have one Canadian economy, not 13. The huge payback for major projects of national interest. The ability to catalyze investment in this country of all sorts, and the importance of diversifying our trading relationships around the world. And I will say in the last 48 hours, I've had a series of conversations around in fact, all of those aspects. Sorry, David, I'll hand back. But, the way we need, and what Canadians, I think the core message to Canadians is something I've said over and again, but I want to really emphasize. We can give ourselves far more than the U.S. can take away. So the U.S. is driving itself into a recession, pressure on the world, if the U.S. doesn't change course. But what we can control is where we invest here, how we support our people, and that's what we're doing.
Do you anticipate Canada and or North America entering a recession? Has that likelihood increased? And 3, what steps might a government take to, like you did in 08-09, make sure we come out of that recession more rapidly?
Exactly the right question. In terms of yes, the probability of a recession in the United States has gone up significantly. You see that from independent commentators, and something that we had warned about, and I take no joy in it becoming more likely. That will have significant effects on the Canadian economy. It's very hard for us to avoid that area. That's part of the reason why in advance of this election we made the changes to EI to make it more generous. It's part of the reason why we made the changes to provide liquidity to Canadian companies so they're not pulling back unnecessarily. And I think that we're at a situation where those steps will help provide for companies the financing that's necessary in order to do. There's other things that can be done on the margin. What we're going to need to do, though, government, what Canadians will choose their government in a few weeks. My judgment, my government will act with force. We will accelerate major investments. We will provide very clear guidelines on where we're going to spend money, where the returns are going to be for the private sector, where we're going to take regulations away. I'll give you one example to make that tangible, David, but there are many more. We announced at the first ministers' meeting 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, just before calling the election, that we will remove all federal barriers to interprovincial trade, mobility, by Canada Day. We will table that legislation by Canada Day. We've left instructions for the officials to be developing that. We, as the Liberal Party, are developing that. And the first item of business, if we are returned, is going to be accelerating that, because that's the kind of certainty that you help to provide for business to make those investments. And Canada moves forward as Canada, not reading Truth Social and X and watching tweets down there. We'll take charge.
The U.S. has announced its intention to raise softwood lumber duties from 14.5% to 34.45%, which would be an enormous hit on an industry that is already struggling in BC with lowered supply and job losses. It's something the Premier says that he'll be talking to you about later today. What's your message to forestry workers in this province, and what do you plan to do in terms of supporting the industry and workers who are at this point worried about the feasibility of their jobs moving forward?
Okay, well, thank you for the question. And I start where you ended up, which is it starts with workers. It starts with workers and working back from workers, and our commitment in this trade battle, and our commitment more generally, is to support workers. These tariffs are wholly unjustified. They came through a USTR process, but they're wholly unjustified. And I recognize that there's 50,000 workers that are affected by this. I recognize the importance of this industry. I've known it my whole life.
And the way we win this fight against the threats of Donald Trump is not by making Canada more like the United States. That's not how we do this. The way we win this fight is by doubling down on who we are as a country, by doubling down on the values that make us who we are. We believe in taking care of each other. It's a Canadian value. That's why we have things like healthcare. We also believe in taking care of our country, taking care of the land, the air, and the water. Protecting our environment is what makes us Canadian as well. So when we fight back against Donald Trump, we got to fight back by defending what is dear to us, what is true to who we are.
Canada slamming the United States because of President Trump's widespread tariffs, with Canadian Foreign Minister saying that the relationship with the United States will, quote, never be the same. This comes on the heels of Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney almost mourning. He sounded doleful about the U.S.-Canadian relationship.
The system of global trade anchored on the United States that Canada has relied on since the end of the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for our country for decades, is over.
As a response today, Canada enacted reciprocal tariffs against the U.S., enacting a 25% tariff on cars and car parts. With me now to discuss is the Canadian ambassador to the United States, Kirsten Hillman. Ambassador Hillman, it's always good to have you here. A few weeks ago, your country was ready to shut off electricity to some American cities, but instead Canada chose to enact tariffs on cars. Can you walk us through the decision-making, why you did this as opposed to something that might have been more shocking, more consequential, like turning off the lights?
Yeah. Thanks, Jake, and thanks for having me. I think it's important for us to approach this moment in time in a way that shows Canada and Canadians and the Americans that we are going to stand up for Canadians, but at the same time, it's important for us not to escalate to a point where we don't find ourselves able to have an off-ramp or a conversation with the White House. And so what we did yesterday was we mirrored the U.S. tariffs on automobiles. We have a deeply integrated auto sector with a few exceptions. So we actually aren't putting tariffs on parts because we import a lot of American parts from West Virginia, from Michigan, all over the place, and we want those relationships to continue. So we are putting the tariffs on automobiles imports, and we are also not putting the tariffs on any Mexican components in those automobiles because Mexico hasn't tariffed us. We are in the USMCA partnership, and we want to make sure that we are not, inadvertently hurting our Mexican partners as well.
Do you think your country is, how much is it factoring into your actions, the degree to which Canada actually made out better than some other countries when you look at what President Trump brought to the fore the other day?
Well, Yes, it's true that on Wednesday we didn't get any new tariffs, but let's not forget the autos tariffs came into place. The parts tariffs are coming in. We have tariffs on steel. We have tariffs on aluminum products, and it's having a consequence. We used to have 99% tariff-free trade a couple of months ago. Now a big portion of the trade between our two countries are under tariffs, and we're seeing it. Stellantis shuttered a plant. Suspended operations. 900 Americans lost jobs because of that, and many more in Canada. So these are real-world consequences to these actions. And again, what we are looking forward to and hoping we will see soon is a comprehensive discussion around the Canada-U.S. trading relationship, which is changing. It's clearly changing.
Is there a scenario in which Canada would negotiate with President Trump to lower tariffs?
So we, again, under USMCA, 99% tariff-free. We have a tariff-free...
USMCA, we should note, that's the new NAFTA, the new trade agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, which was President Trump's achievement.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And an important modernization of NAFTA. But now we're facing a sort of a different objective. The president has a transformational objective for trading relationships between the United States and trading partners. As he is implementing that transformational agenda, the relationship that we have with the country, our economic and trade relationship, will transform. So those rules will have to, presumably change along with it. We're looking forward to having that conversation. We're in an election period right now in Canada, so that more comprehensive conversation, which the president has said he wants, will happen after our election.
And this just in, CNN's Kayla Tausche just reported that a source says President Trump is in touch with representatives from Vietnam, from India, from Israel to negotiate trade deals that could alleviate these proposed tariffs in advance of a deadline next week. Do you have any idea if there's going to be any such discussion with Canada? Any plans to have those conversations?
Well, so the tariffs that were imposed yesterday, these reciprocal tariffs, they don't apply to Canada. They don't apply to Mexico.
Right.
So we're not in a position to be working towards those discussions. We have had a discussion with the president around starting.
Canada is going to keep fighting. Tonight at midnight, new laws are going in place, new retaliatory laws, trade rules to fight back against Trump. And they're going to keep happening. Trump needs to realize that countries have to do this. Countries don't want to do this because, again, while targeted tariffs in a certain way at certain times can be valid economic policy and can be part of even friendly countries disagreeing and having debates, this is not what's happening. So Americans, or at least Trump-supporting Americans, reacting in shock, like, how dare Canada, how dare European countries, how dare Mexico, how dare China, whoever, respond with tariffs of their own? Well, of course they have to. You cannot unilaterally do this and expect no response. And governments need to make this clear, that this is what was going to happen. And again, Canada was sort of the canary in the coal mine, or at least one of them, along with Mexico. Remember, Trump started this back early in the year when he said he was going to put tariffs on. And he made up BS reasons about, illegal activity flowing over the Canadian border into the United States, which wasn't true. And if anything, more illegal activity flows from the U.S. into Canada. And still, Canada invested more money into the border just to prove that Trump was BSing, and they proved it correctly. Canada warned the world. Trump's going to do this to everybody. It's not just going to be Canada and Mexico and Panama and Greenland. It's starting with us, but it's going to get worse. Frankly, some of the world didn't listen. Canada's been proven right, and not just any one party in Canada, Canada as a whole.